I think, yeah, kind of how you mentioned earlier, just finding the rhythm, finding the confidence in game. Shooting 25 shots in a row in practice is different than getting your four looks in a game and not being able to knock them down and having the confidence to continue shooting them. So I think just getting the opportunity in that second half of the season and seeing them go in and then continuing to get those open looks really just fed that confidence. And I think that hot streak towards the end.
Could no longer even look at my teammates. We simply wanted these eerie remarks from with her most recent shocking interview. Lexie Hull stunned the WNBA community. At last, Hull breaks her. Remain silent regarding Caitlin Clark's 2024 season of Indiana Fever, what made this underperforming squad a candidate for the championship, and why did everyone find Hull's connection with Clark shocking? Hull shares the team's locker room secrets and the real story of their historic return. You won't believe what transpired behind closed doors.
I mean, the numbers support it. We obviously know it is a truism, but even last year, where the numbers were not where you wanted them to be, when you played 10 to 19 minutes, you shot 11% from three. When you played 20 to 29, it was 22%. You played north of 30 minutes, you were 33%. You were finding it as you went, and then obviously you've elevated all of those levels in the process. Was there a moment that, when you're talking to Christy Sides early on, where you're being told, I am going to get more of this playing time, more of this opportunity? And does that help feed your confidence as well?
The Indiana Fever's 2024 season began as a living hell. With them shaking her head, Lexie Hull reclines in her chair, takes a big breath, and explains what actually transpired during those terrible initial weeks, 11 games in 20 days. Which sounds insane even to mention. This wasn't just any schedule, though. It was the most taxing stretch the WNBA had witnessed since.
I mean, honestly, I can't really pinpoint a moment. It was, I think, just I was given a chance in the game and I hit a couple early ones and then you get a couple more minutes and you hit another one and you get a couple more minutes. So it wasn't ever like I was told you're going to be playing today, make sure you take advantage of it. It was just, when you're sitting on that bench and you don't know when your number is going to be called. And when it finally is called, just trying to take advantage of it. And I was just happy that the ball went in.
Returning to the hotel at 2 a.m. following a game. And guess what? We played another game the following evening. Hull discloses that the squad was operating on empty, with no time for reviewing game tape, let alone practice, and that the physical toll was evident. In the Fever locker room, ice packs, training room trips, and worn-out faces became commonplace, but the mental strain was even worse. The team's record swiftly plummeted to 211, a start that left supporters and the media wondering if the Fever would ever turn things around. Hull's voice becomes quieter as she recalls those depressing days when you start doubting everything. Your shots aren't falling, your legs feel heavy, and you're watching the losses pile up. It messes with your head.
Do you know what you shot from three? You shot 66.7% from three. When you went out there, there's no such thing as tired legs in that scenario. You are sinking 2 and 3. No one does that. No one does. I mean, it's just incredible.
The pressure was tremendous. Every missed attempt seemed like a failure on my part. Every loss added another layer of uncertainty. Hull recalls one evening after a particularly difficult loss. I was shooting by myself in the gym, trying to find my rhythm. My 3-0 percentage had fallen to 11%, and I was baffled as to why. At Stanford, where I was known for my shooting, I was now unable to purchase a bucket coach. Coach Sides didn't yell or give us a movie-style speech. Instead, she did something none of us expected. She listened for 3 hours as players opened up about their struggles. When she noticed her team struggling behind closed doors, Christy Sides called a team meeting that would change everything. Hull leans forward, her eyes brightening as she shares this never-told story. Veterans talked about their own struggles. It felt as though a burden had been removed from our shoulders when seasoned newcomers shared their concerns about not being good enough. Hull claims that after realizing we weren't alone in this, the squad changed their approach to practice the following day and began celebrating little wins rather than concentrating on what was going wrong. A flawless pass and a strong defensive stop. Coach Sides instructed us to look at each other instead of the scoreboard after a teammate picked someone up after a mistake.
When did you know that it was finally going to click for you? I mean, yeah, you hit 4 threes early on in the year, on May 25th against Las Vegas. There were signs early on that you were finding it. This before you even were starting. Was there a moment where it felt like this was finally happening? And again, was there any sort of off-season change? Was there anything that you were doing differently that helped this happen? Or does the ball just start going through the hoop for you?
The game that changed everything was May 25th, 2024, when the Fever faced the league's powerhouse, Las Vegas. No one gave them a chance, and he wasn't even supposed to play many minutes, but then something magical happened. The first 3 minutes went in, and to be honest, it felt different. Hull mimics her shooting motion, then one swishes, then one net, and by the fourth one, the crowd was going crazy. Hull had discovered her rhythm and, more significantly, her self-assurance. One of the most incredible comebacks in WNBA history ensued, as evidenced by Hull's shooting percentages, which went from a pitiful 11% to an incredible 47.1% from three-point range. Coach says that when she gave me more playing time, everything clicked, and in games where she played more than 30 minutes, Hull shot an almost unbelievable 66.7% from beyond the arc.
I think for me, we have some incredible playmakers on our team and incredible people that can get you the ball when you're open and create advantages. And so me being one of those people that I'm spacing the floor and I need to knock down those shots. So not only, holding myself accountable to do that as my role and hit those open looks, but also being able to stand up for my teammates and say, thank you. You're doing the work, you're doing the hard work, and I'll be here and I'll knock it down when I need to. So,
however, the figures only partially depict the story. The full revelation of their secret weapon shows how the genuine shift occurred in practice. We were in the gym during midnight sessions after games when most teams were asleep. Coaches would roll out the balls and say, "Show me you want it." These late-night practices became legendary within the team, with veterans staying late to assist rookies and push the starters in scrimmages. The team began to develop unique jokes and a chemistry that went beyond basketball. According to Hull, we became a family. The games and schedule were still difficult, but they tackled each task differently. Hull recalls one instance that nicely encapsulates this change. We lost that game, but we battled until the last buzzer, which is when I realized we were different. In the past, when we were behind 15 in the fourth quarter against Chicago, we would have given up, but instead, our bench was the loudest it had been all season. Every timeout was full of encouragement. It may seem easy, but coach sides instituted a new custom whereby the team would circle together in the locker room after every game, win or loss, and each player had to share one thing they were proud of and one thing they had learned. Hull acknowledges, but it altered our perspective. We stopped dwelling on our limitations and began to celebrate our strengths. The improvement was not only evident in the numbers, but also in the small things, as Hull noticed her teammates' confidence increasing, passes becoming sharper, defense becoming tighter, and bench energy becoming electric. We came to believe that no opponent was unbeatable and no deficit was too great, and their practice intensity reached new heights. According to Hull, the squad developed competition workouts that imitated their most difficult game scenarios, where we practiced three-pointers while someone shouted in our ear to divert our attention. Before making free throws, the coach would have us run sprints to mimic late-game exhaustion, and the media began to notice the difference. Headlines shifted from doubting the team's future to lauding their tenacity, but within the locker room, they desired more than mere progress. Hull's own journey reflected the team's metamorphosis. Those early setbacks taught me an important lesson. Success isn't about never falling, but rather about how you get back up after a setback. Her shooting routine became almost religious. 500 shots before practice, 500 after she watched footage of her successful games and noted every detail of her form. When shots fell, the team's chemistry strengthened off the court as well, and they began hosting community service events, movie nights, and team dinners. Hull says that when you're fighting with people you truly care about, it hits differently. Looking back at those first 20 days, Hull sees them differently now. But that harsh schedule. The guys stopped viewing themselves as underdogs and began carrying themselves like competitors. Every practice turned into a chance to prove themselves, and every game became a time to demonstrate their development. The change was not just about basketball abilities, though. Hull's voice is filled with pride as she talks about how they've progressed from barely being able to look at each other after losses to becoming one of the league's closest teams. The best part is that we're just getting started. As the season went on, their improvement made it impossible to overlook teams that had previously viewed games against Indiana as simple wins. Now, they had to prepare differently. The Fever weren't just competing, they were winning, and they were doing it their way. Coach Sides said something to us at the beginning of our turnaround that stuck with me. Hull says the proof was in their comeback stories. Games they would have lost by 20 early in the season became close battles, some of which even turned into victories, and the team that had once hoped to just survive was now thriving. Champions aren't born in victory, they are forged in defeat. When you have teammates who believe in you, coaches who trust you, and a system that empowers you, that's when special things happen. Hull's shooting transformation became a symbol of the team's larger journey from hesitant to take open shots to becoming one of the league's most reliable three-point threats. Their practice intensity never decreased. If anything, it increased as they got better. The midnight sessions continued, but now they were focused on perfecting their craft rather than just. Hull recalls a specific night when the squad sat up until 2 a.m. practicing their free throws. She claims that this wasn't because anyone forced them to, but rather because they wanted to see the season that began with hopelessness turn into something lovely. The team could have disintegrated. Under pressure had instead become unbreakable, and although the wins were pleasant, the journey was what meant the most during those first 20 days. Hull smiles and says, "They didn't break us, they made us." Then things started to get really interesting, and on the day Caitlin Clark entered the Indiana Fever practice facility, everything changed. Lexie Hull remembers it as if it had been yesterday, with fans trying to peek through the windows and media everywhere. She says it was like nothing W. Recalling her first session with Clark, Hull chuckles and says, "I had to completely rewire my brain." She shakes her head in surprise, saying, "I'd be cutting to the basket thinking I'm not even close to the play, and suddenly the ball's in my hands." At first, Hull admits, we went from playing in half-full arenas to having people queue outside hours before tip-off. However, Clark's influence went beyond simply filling seats. She altered how the entire team played. Caitlin would find angles that shouldn't exist. The WNBA's Fever went from a team vying for attention to the hottest ticket in the league. Every game was sold out, every practice had reporters, and every move was analyzed. Hull's eyes brighten as she describes how playing with Caitlin requires you to constantly be prepared. "I discovered this the hard way after missing a few excellent passes, because I wasn't expecting the ball." The numbers speak for themselves. As the defenders surrounded Clark, Hull's shooting opportunities increased dramatically, giving other players room they had never had before. It's funny. After one practice, Coach Stephanie White pulled Hull aside and laid out a new vision, telling me to stop thinking like a role player. Paul claims that although people talk about pressure when playing with a star like Caitlin, she actually makes the game easier because she attracts a lot of attention and is so selfless with the ball. As Hull recounts, Caitlin created possibilities for me to be more aggressive in order to find my shot. The chemistry between Clark and Hull developed more quickly than anybody anticipated, and they began staying after practicing timing their cuts and learning about each other's tendencies. It wasn't all plain sailing, though. Caitlin would assure me that if you get to this location, I'll always locate you. She did, but there were games where we felt the pressure to perform increased, and every error was magnified in front of the national spotlight. Hull acknowledges that the strain of demands and continuous attentiveness puts your mind to the test. White's coaching style helped them deal with the pressure by teaching them to embrace it rather than run from it. Coach White would say that this pressure is a privilege because it shows that we matter and that what we're doing is important. The team created new traditions to stay grounded before every game, gathering in a circle to discuss their goals, fears, and excitement. This kept us human. Hull reminds us that despite all the fanfare, we are just passionate basketball players. When Hull discusses their relationship with Clark on the court, her voice becomes animated. There is a play. I can't reveal too much about how we run, but it seems like we can read each other's thoughts. Now, when she gives me this look, I know precisely where to go. The people of Indiana welcomed their new appearance. When Hull would make three-pointers, the supporters here are unique, and Clark and the Roars had a chance to win MVP. Hull claims that they have supported us during difficult times and are now a true sixth player for us as we look to 2025. Hull's voice has a quiet confidence that says, "We're not just happy to be here anymore, we believe we can win it all." She pauses, carefully choosing her next words. Playing with Caitlin and learning from Coach, White has shown us what is possible, but more importantly, it has shown us who we can become. The team's goals have changed, and now they want multiple championships. That's what great players do to a team. According to Hull, they lifted the bar. As our conversation comes to an end, Hull shares one last thought about playing with Clark. "You know what's crazy? Sometimes I'll watch our game film and I'll see these passes she makes, and I still can't believe it." That's the Caitlin effect. She creates the impossible look routine. With Clark and Hull leading the way, the Indiana Fever aren't just a team anymore. They're a family, and with them poised to shock the WNBA world. The question isn't whether they will win a championship, but when, and based on the determined expression in Hull's eyes, that time may come sooner than anyone anticipates, given their near-quitting transformation into one of the league's deadliest shooters. Do you want more behind-the-scenes looks at your favorite WNBA players? Lexie Hull's experience with the Indiana Fever is about more than just basketball. It's about never giving up. Click the subscribe button to enable notifications. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you think the Indiana Fever, with Clark and Hull, can win it all in 2025? Thank you for viewing, and we hope to see you in the upcoming video where we discuss more WNBA insider stories.